You deserve the glory. From for you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory. Hey, Jesus. Hey, you deserve it all. Yes, you do, Lord. You deserve the glory. Hey, hallelujah. Guys, I'm coming to you guys again about our children and how moms need to go home. I want you to pay attention to two of these videos that I'm about to show you guys. Then I have a few words that I want to say. I won't be long, but I want you guys to understand how important it is for mothers to go home. I'm not just picking on moms and all the jealousy and all this old nonsense that people want to say. No, the barefoot and pregnant. No, y'all throw that out the door because our children are truly in trouble. Okay, not just the shootings, but in every way of life, our children are in trouble. Mama, you need to go home. And I'm gonna say this again: call those things that be not as though they are, be not as though they were. Mom, you are already at home. But I want to show you these videos. One, the second video, I know the mom is a stay-at-home mom, and they still was able to get something through on her, and she's a stay-at-home mom. And for them to get something through on her, and she's a stay-at-home mom, and she's involved. Just imagine what they're doing with your children when you're at work and you're not involved, or you semi-involved. I want you guys to listen to this. This first video, I don't know if she's involved in her schooling with the children or if she's a stay-at-home mom or not, but I do know that she came across something that was going on with her children at school. So I want you guys to listen to this and get an understanding. These are the things that's going on in the school. This is another reason why I say mamas need to be at home raising their children, teaching them, guiding them, guarding them, and protecting them, directing them. Pay attention, please.
Parents, this video is for you. It is imperative that we pay attention to what is going on in our schools. I got a permission slip recently from my daughter's school, and we live in a fairly conservative area next to Akron, Ohio. The permission slip was for her to attend health class. Mind you, she is in 5th grade. It had the syllabus on there and a link to show you what material she will be learning. I did some research, and you will be astounded, oh my gosh, blown away by what they are trying to teach my 5th grader. Watch this video. It is absolutely disgusting.
Yes, come on, yes, oh yes. Aha! What are you doing there? You've had enough for one day. You'll go blind. I'm coming! How many times is too many in one day? Hashtag Ask-A-Maze! There's no limit on the number of times a person can mouth each day. I have another question. Sometimes my stands up in the air, and it feels good when I touch it.
When your stands up, it's called an erection. Girls also have a private part that they may want to touch because it feels nice. It's okay.
Mind you, I'm reminding you, the video is for 5th graders. And we, on the right, are saying that the left is trying to over-sexualize our children. This is exactly what we're talking about. And they want to gaslight us and pretend that it's not happening. In what world does a 5th grader need to learn how to masturbate? Now, this is just the beginning. They start in 5th grade and they work their way up. Here are just some of the videos that are on this Amaze website. I encourage you to go check them out yourself. This is not the only website that they will use to teach our children as well. The sad part is, in order to get federal funding, they have to do these programs.
When you're born, your sex is assigned in a medical way, but the sex listed on your birth certificate may not necessarily match your gender identity.
Gender identity is a person's inner experience of who they are in terms of gender, their deep personal sense of being male, female, a blend of both, or neither.
And while many people have a gender identity that's the same as their assigned birth sex of female or male, that's not always the case, because gender exists on a spectrum. Like transgender, which means a person whose gender identity is not consistent with their assigned birth sex. Non-binary, which means a person whose identity doesn't fall in the category of either male or female. And genderqueer or gender fluid, which means a person who does not identify themselves as having a specific gender at all.
Does gender identity have to do with being straight or gay?
Actually, no. Gender identity has to do with the way you feel about yourself, while sexual orientation is based on the way you feel toward others, the people.
Luckily, in Ohio, you can opt out. I don't know about other states. You'll have to dig into that further. I found on Ohio Protects Children a opt-out form. I'm going to show it right here for you. So this form I sent to my principal and assistant principal. They got back to me and said that my daughter will not be attending any health classes whatsoever. Now, mind you, I'll have to do this every single year, every single grade, but I don't mind. The only thing that sucks is I know that other students are going to attend this class, and maybe my daughter will ask them, well, what was the class about? So inevitably, I can't keep her from this because of the public school system. And this reason alone is why I am running for school board in Ohio this upcoming election. Parents, please pay attention to what is going on in our schools. If we are not aware, this will continue. Also, don't forget to share this with a friend. A lot of parents really don't know what's going on, and
Now, be perfectly honest, that's not good for no age. From kindergarten, pre-K to 12th grade. That should not be a curricular in school, period. Okay? Your sexual identity and anything that has to do with sexual preference or whatever, that is a personal thing. That is something that is done behind closed doors with you and hopefully your husband or your wife. You should not be taught nothing like that in school. The closest to anything to do with sex that should be taught in school is about being pregnant. About having sex and being pregnant. That is the closest thing, the only thing that should be taught about sex. In other words, abstinence is what should be taught in school. How to do it, when to do it, how long to do it, how long not to do it. All that stuff that shouldn't be taught. Self-pleasure or being pleased by somebody else, that should not be taught. Yeah. That should not be in schools. Mothers, this is the thing that they're teaching in school. But it get a little deeper than that. Now, she just found that they're teaching these things in school. Let's watch the next video. My heart goes out to all you mothers that's going through things like this. Now, let's see. Let's go back a few seconds. Okay, so see if I can lighten this up a little bit. None of this should be in schools. So mothers, again, they pulled the dads out, then they pulled you out. Now they're taking control of your children. Now let's see what else is going on in the school. And I found many of these stories. Okay, hey. And we've been hearing about it on news and stuff like that. But listen to this mom. And this mom, she is a stay-at-home mom. And she's involved in the school activities and whatnot. And they got this past her without her knowledge. Just imagine what's getting past you and you're not even at home with your children or being involved.
And so the vast majority of my time was spent volunteering
Well,
in
let's
my
let me back
children's
that up a
schools.
little bit.
I was even out to the school as I had done so many times before. I am a stay-at-home mom, and so the vast majority of my time was spent volunteering in my children's schools. I was even volunteer of the year at this middle school. So I had no reason not to trust the school had my daughter's best interest. I was also a substitute teacher, just to give you an indication of how involved I was in my kids' schooling. So I reached out to her homeroom teacher and I let her know that my daughter may ask to be called by a different name. This is what's going on. We're doing our best to navigate this with a therapist within our home. We are not affirming this identity. In fact, I feel it's directly related to her friend groups. And there are details about that communication that I can't go into because we are still in litigation with the school district. But the teacher I confided in was the LGBTQ advocate on campus. So I didn't hear anything further from the teacher. I had assumed as I reached out to her that it would be treated like a nickname. A couple of weeks later, my daughter got into the car and said, "Mom, I had a meeting at school today about my name." But it was weird because they asked me which restroom I wanted to use. My daughter was identifying as non-binary at that time, but again, she was confused. Her identity changed 4 times over 2 years, just to give you an indication. As she told me this, I was shocked. As I stated previously, my daughter has diagnosed ADHD, so she has a 504 plan. And I know that they cannot implement a 504 plan without me being present and signing forms. So I was very confused and shocked how they had had a meeting with my daughter that I didn't know about, and I wasn't invited to or anything like that. So I immediately emailed the school counselor, and she called me back with the assistant principal. So immediately I knew something was off. And they said, "Mrs. Littlejohn, we cannot give you any information about the meeting we had with your child. They are now protected by a non-discrimination law. Your only recourse is to go to the assistant superintendent," which I did. And phone calls and emails went back and forth for multiple weeks, and we were finally given an in-person meeting with the principal of the middle school. By this time, the first 9 weeks had just ended, to give you an indication of how long this took. So at this meeting, we were shown the gender support plan. Sorry. And I know one of the presenters yesterday had one of these plans. This is from Gender Spectrum. I wish I could show you my daughter's support plan, but because we are in litigation, that is part of the evidence. Because it would show you just how childlike her answers were and how the power differential must have been in that room with 3 adults consisting of an assistant principal, a school counselor, and a social worker I had never met, with my 13-year-old child behind closed doors filling out a 6-page transgender support plan. My daughter, because she has ADHD, was emotionally 11 at that time. So as you see from this intake form, the process was you go to the school counselor, you say, "I'm trans," and within 48 hours, they are required to set up a meeting. And I have circled the part where it says parent or guardian. Are they aware and are they supportive? So this was the only question where they asked her, and that ultimately decided whether or not my husband and I would be notified or asked to come to the meeting. So at this meeting that they had with my child, this is the first page of the support plan. And as you see the word supportive again. And this word supportive, like so much of our language, has been hijacked by activism. It no longer means the same thing to everyone. So for instance, supporting a child in the reality of her natal body does not count as support to trans activists. The considerations portion of the plan is where they ask the child, "Would you like privacy from your parents?" Meaning, when we speak to your parents, should we refer to you as your birth name and pronouns, or should we use your preferred name and pronouns? And this is to effectively deceive parents from knowing that these support plans and these social transitions have ever even occurred. So again, you see the plan colludes with the child to reiterate who can and cannot be aware of the child's confusion. This is an enormous amount of power they are giving to young children that are not equipped to handle it. This also really pits the child against her parents and sends a clear message that the parent authority is no longer wanted or needed. It also sent the message to our daughter that she needed to be protected from us and not by us. This is the page where I almost came out of my chair during the meeting. This is where they asked the children which restrooms and showers they would like to use on campus and which sex they prefer to room with on overnight field trips. And all this is done under the guise of making a child feel safe at school. But if you really cared about the safety of a child, parents would immediately be included in these meetings every single time. Further, there was not one question on this plan about previous history of self-harm or suicidal ideation or potential abuse at home. Yet these are the exact reasons being constantly used to cut parents out of these critical decisions being made. This was never about the safety of these children. This plan created a huge wedge between us and our daughter, and shortly after this, her mental health spiraled. So after the meeting, I was very angry, and we continued throughout this process to ask for legal justification that they had for meeting with our child without our notification or consent. And we were finally mailed this 28-page guide, the Leon County Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, Gender Nonconforming, and Questioning Support Guide. I've also included an Equality Florida Safe Space sticker that you can see all over Leon County schools, even in the elementary schools. As part of this guide, there was a Q&A, and this is part of the Q&A. So it says misgendering is considered harassment. So student harassment is a firing offense for teachers and staff. This sent a clear message: comply or lose your job.
I'm gonna give away this incredible $4,000. Wait, no, not this one. This
sent a clear message: comply or lose your job. A student has exhibited behavior in school leading administrators or teachers to believe the student is LGBTQ+. Should the parents or guardians be notified? No. Outing a student, especially to parents, can be dangerous to the student's health and well-being. Outing students to their parents can literally make them homeless. So parents who love their children more than anyone else, who are ultimately responsible for every part of their care, are being painted as enemies to their own children with no due process. So I started to research these guides and wondered if other Florida schools had these guides. And all roads led to an organization called Equality Florida. And Equality Florida had launched their Safe Schools program in 2016. And a part of that program was to do outreach to schools. They had what was called a Safe Schools Equality Index, and it was essentially a checklist that they would give each school going into the school under the guise of anti-bullying and anti-discrimination, and they asked them, how best are you protecting your LGBTQ students? Well, what school doesn't want to protect all of their students? And so this checklist would go through different checklists of, do you have a guide? Do you have an implemented support plan protocol? And do you have a GSA club? Or do you have inclusive materials? Have you done professional training with every staff member on your campus? And so there would be these next steps depending upon the answers to that survey. And as you can see on this graph, the green is deeply embedded LGBTQ support, including professional development. The yellow was LGBTQ professional development, and the red, which equaled bad, no professional development. And so, what is that, 4 counties out of 67 that they had not infiltrated? So what I realized is all of the major counties in Florida had these LGBTQ guides. Some of them were over 100 pages long, but they all had the same policies. And I say policies, but they were really de facto policies because they were called guides for a specific reason. Guides do not have to go through school board approval. Policy does. So these guides never saw the light of day. So many parents were completely in the dark and unaware that this had been used to train every staff member in Leon County schools, but they never knew.
Okay,
So
guys,
after
it's
you're
kind of
trying to
lengthy, so
resolve
I'm going to
this
cut it off
issue with your
there.
school district, we
I
made
want
the
y'all to
difficult
see the
decision
name
to go
of it
public
because
with
I
our
want you
story
guys
and
to
file a
pull it
federal
up.
lawsuit against the school district.
See if I can get that name.
It's not all good news.
Okay,
So
well,
in
it's
December
called
of
My
2022,
Daughter's
The
School.
federal judge dismissed our case.
It's called My Daughter's School Transitioned Her Without Telling Me. January Littlejohn. So my daughter's school transitioned her without telling me. January Littlejohn. Okay, and this was posted January 27, 2024. It just happened to come across my page about a week or so ago. I made a video and I made reference to that. Guys, and I found it again and I said, let me post it because I want you guys to understand. And those are just 2 videos. There's a lot of different things that's going on in your kid's school that you have no idea is going on. See, that's another reason why mothers need to be at home with their children. That mom, she's at home. And not only is she at home, a stay-at-home mom, she is involved in her kid's school. You know, she's involved with different curriculars and everything at that school. She does what a mom is supposed to do. But they still got that past her. They still got it past her. So you moms that are spending time in somebody's jobs in the workforce, imagine what your kids are going through. Imagine the different things that they're being taught. And then you got the bullying going on by other students. You got bullying going on by parents. I was watching a video yesterday. I should have pulled that one out too. Where one of the little boys had gotten to it. They was probably, they were teenagers. And one of the guys apparently was saying something bad about this man's daughter. And they looked like they was probably 14, 15, 16. And the little boy had been saying some things to the daughter that the dad didn't like. I guess the daughter was going home telling dad what was going on. And dad, big guy, came to the school and he was he was cutting up with that little boy. Now, yes, the boy was bullying the daughter. But from what the boy said, he said, I never said anything to your daughter. Now, whether he was lying or not, I don't know. I couldn't really tell it, but, but it wasn't enough, I wasn't there, so I couldn't feel him. Like I, if I'm in his presence, I could feel whether or not he's lying. But anyway, the man really, for a minute, I thought the man was going to grab that boy. You understand what I'm saying? Now, even though I hate bullying, that's the reason why I'm telling you guys, you need to be a home mom. But the thing is this, there is protocol that you go through. Dad had no business just going up to that school, walking in that classroom, cutting up with that boy like that. Dad had no reason to do that. He was wrong. Now, if Dad had went through protocol, and then the little boy continued to mess with the daughter, then I could understand that. But to my understanding, Dad had never ever been to that school to talk to anybody about what was going on with that little boy and his daughter until that day. Yeah. There is certain ways you deal with certain things. When it comes down to a bully, you go to that school, and I've told y'all before about what me and my 2 sons went through when one of them was being bullied. We went through proper protocol, still didn't get help. And it went, But nevertheless, I went through proper protocol. You understand? You go through proper protocol. And then if that don't work, I can understand the dad going and you know, trying to put a little fear in the little boy's heart. I can understand that. Because at that point, you've done all that you know to do. You've done all that you were supposed to do as a parent. Then you try to put a little fear in that little boy if the school don't take care of it. Or if that boy's parents don't, you know, calm that down, let him know you don't be doing that to any other student. I can understand that. But at that point, he had never even been up to the school before until then. See, your kids are going through things in them schools that you have no idea about. Mama, you need to be at home so that you can not only raise your children, but teach them, and not only teach them, but protect them. You need to be at home. Now, I'm quite sure if that young man, where the man had went up there and was bullying that little boy, if mom had been home and the little boy had called mom, so-and-so died up here and he's bullying me, I'm sure mom would have came up there or called the police to deal with that situation. But 9.5 times out of 10, the boy's mom was probably at work. The teacher was in the classroom. Teacher said nothing. Just allowed it to happen. I mean, I could understand because that was a big old black man. I would have, and the teacher was a white guy, and the boy was a white boy. So I could understand the teacher said, not for the whoop on me. So I could understand him being afraid because that was a big black guy. You know. So, but nevertheless, if mom had been home, she would have came up and she more than likely would have called the police and sent the police up there to handle the situation. Mom, you need to be at home with your children. They need you in more ways than one. All of these different issues, and every time I see something that I know is that you are missing, I'm going to post it. That is also being a child of God. If God show you something, I don't care what it is, whether it's to do with the church or do with the world, you sound the alarm. And this is something that the Lord has been dealing with me for years. And I've been crying out. People just don't want to hear. Keep acting like you don't hear. This is another reason. They taking your children. I posted that back in 2015, 16, 2017. No, 2016, 15 or 16. When I first seen that the schools, and even though that's Florida, and the first one was in Ohio, and the second one was in Florida, but you understand that it may be taking place in Florida, and it might not be taking place in your city or your state, but if it's taking place in one state or one city, it's going to take place in your city, in your state. Because in Michigan, those same rules that sister was talking about that's going on in Florida, that's what's going on in Michigan. And it's been going on in Michigan since 2000, I want to say 16. Probably before then, because when I was talking to the lady about it, when I was up there with my grandbaby and I found out about it myself, she said that it's been like that for a few years, she said. So it's been going on for a minute. I didn't know that. My daughter didn't know that. Most parents don't know that even today. Go home to your children. Children are a gift from God. And you're supposed, they're a gift from God. And they're God's heritage. They're his heritage. And parents, you have been conditioned. You have been called to take care of that child and to teach that child and to nourish that child with different things of life that they need in order to be successful in life. You have been commanded to do what needs to be done in order to raise that child in the right way. You, mothers, go home to your children and leave this workforce alone. You are needed at home. Your work is needed at home. Black parents, I hate to put it like this to you, But there was a time when your mom wasn't able, when black people mom wasn't able to be at home with them. They were made to be in other people's homes, taking care of their children, taking care of their business. They wasn't able to be at home to feed their children. They had to breastfeed their breast milk to other children. They were made to not be at home with you. And they wanted to be at home with you. They were made not to be. Now you have the authority and you have the right to be at home with your children. But yet you choose to be at a job. Working outside of the home. Yes, Jesus. Jesus. Mothers, again, calling those things that be not as though they were. You are at home with your children. I know you are. Your job is at home with your children, and you are at home taking care of your job. Dads are working those jobs, and the jobs are paying a livable wage so that the fathers can go home, so that the dads can get a job and work a job and be able to take care of their homes, to raise their children and support the children and their moms, so that their moms are able to raise them in a most acceptable way, hopefully a holy way. The owner of businesses, I know y'all some good people. I know y'all have already raised the wages to livable wages. Government, I know y'all have made a way so that they could do it. Y'all already done that. We are all being obedient to the Lord. Calling those things that be not as though they were. We're all being obedient to the Father of creation. Yes, we is. Yeah, we is. We are. We are. Now, I'm going to leave y'all with that. Please understand, and if as I see it, I'm going to post it. Because mothers, you are needed at home. Your first and number one concern is your children's well-being, mentally, physically, and spiritually. That's your job. That's your assignment. You're doing mom job and you're doing dad job. Dad is gonna do his own job. Dad is doing his own job. Mom, you are doing your job. You're at home with those children. Dad is providing for you and the children. Okay? I love you. I love y'all with the love of Christ. Until next time, peace. Stay blessed. Amen.